Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're here with a KBD guide for Old School RuneScape. Been trying to go through a lot of bosses that I have a pretty decent understanding of and feel that I am adequate enough to make a guide on. I've killed a decent amount of KBD. That's just on this account. I also have another account over 1,000, so I mean, yeah, I've killed a little bit, and today I figured I'd throw my KBD expertise and guide making expertise together for a nice little guide for you guys. This should cover mostly everyone from beginners to the best of the best at KBD, so no matter where you stand, you should be able to get some information out of it, and hopefully this will be able to help you. Got a nice little random event here, but as far as me, we'll go ahead and get right on into the guide. So as far as what you can expect from King Black Dragon, if you don't have a decent idea as far as the drop rates, the primary drop that people have always come here for is the Draconic Visage, which is a 1 in 5,000 drop rate. We're somewhere between 5 to 6 mil typically, depending on when you're watching this. It usually tends downwards, so it probably will never go higher than that, but has just kind of been an iconic drop in the game, and that is at 1 in 5,000. Next is the pet, which I'd imagine, a decent amount of pet hunters will come here because it's a pretty chill pet to get and not that bad, at 1 in 3,000 relative to other bosses and how many kills an hour you can get. It's not too bad, so nice little pet hunt as well. You can also get the Dragon Pickaxe here, which is a 1 in 1,500 drop. That is actually like 6 to 7 mil, so actually more than the Vizzy, so a little bit disappointing, I guess, in that regard, but nice little drop that you can get every now and then. And as far as elite clues, KBD isn't that good for them, 1 in 450. A lot of other monsters are much better, but there are some elites that will flow in every now and then. And finally, the King Black Dragon heads are a 1 in 128 chance. Various uses for those, so typically people enjoy getting their first couple. After that, they're not that meaningful, and you can dismantle them for 3 in sold heads. And that's basically it as far as the notable drops. For the kills an hour, I mean, this varies quite a lot depending on what type of gear you have and what levels you have. 15 to 75, anywhere in there. I mean, people at 15 are probably just the bare minimum people, like 60 to 70 range with a rune crossbow, You're not going to do that great of damage on a boss like this. While with 75, that's more assuming like a Dragon Hunter crossbow. You can even get upwards of that with a T-bow and alt accounts if you run alt accounts. But this won't assume alt accounts by any means. It's just something you can add if you want. You can get higher than 75. That is not the max, but for solo, that's about the max. As far as the GP per hour, purely from the loot, that is between like 400k and 1.9 mil. Again, a wide range because of the wide range of kills per hour. Also assume probably 2 to 300k spent per hour in terms of supplies. So as you can tell, if you're only getting 15 kills an hour, you're probably only making like 100, 200k profit per hour. I mean, really, you shouldn't be coming here too early, but it is something you can do, and it is something that is fun for kind of very beginners to get into bossing. So I'm not going to deter you from it. Just know it's not going to be too rewarding. Then more along the lines of bare minimums, we'll get into the requirements. For melee, I'd really recommend 70 attack and strength. Of course, you can come here with the less. Jad's been killed by a level 3, so I'm not saying you can't, but at 70 attack and strength, that's probably the least I would come here with and expect to get moderately efficient kills in any regard. Much along the same lines for the range setup, you're probably going to want to have 70 range at least, but 61 range for a rune crossbow is the minimum I would come here with. So again, 70 probably the recommendation, while 61 is what I would consider to be required. And then as far as some tidbits that are going to be useful for KBD, the first one is there is a 30-second wildy run, or 10 to 15. You're going to be out in the wildy for a small amount of time, so bring 3 to 4 items. That way, if you die, you're not losing anything too useful. You can always risk it if you'd like. It's not that far of a run, but I wouldn't recommend you going out there and dying to PKers. But if that's your thing, feel free. There are also monsters nearby that you can box to try to get out of combat. We'll talk about that later, so you're pretty safe. There's also a suicide method, and this exists at a lot of boss, but it's useful at KBD, which is basically where you fill up a looting bag full of supplies, you fill up your inventory full of supplies, and you go and die there. And essentially you're dropping 2 inventories of stuff at KBD for yourself to later pick up, and that will last on the ground for an hour. That is assuming the current death mechanics. These are due to change in the future, so I'm not exactly sure. These probably won't play as much of a role then, but for now it is very useful if you want to go ahead and use that. And then finally, range is typically going to be better than melee. It might not always be, depending on what your stats are, if your melees are a lot higher than your range, but for the most part, range is going to be better than melee. Alright, so now we'll take a look at the best gear for both of these setups. On the left-hand side, we have the melee, which is a Dragon Hunter Lance, a Torture, and a Dragon Fire Shield. Those are the three main items I'm bringing that I'm not afraid to die with, because I will keep them on death. As far as the other items, I mean, you know, you can downgrade if you're really scared of dying, but honestly, this setup probably has like a risk of 600 to 800k. It's not too bad. And honestly, I might even bring a little extra because I've never died on my way to KBD, but it is possible. But looking more at the melee setup, we have an Arty Cape. Whichever Arty Cape is your best is what you should be bringing. I have an Arty Cape 2 here because the account I took these pictures on is awful, and more in lines of this account being awful, the Treasonous Ring that I have on is not imbued. It should be. A Berserker Ring is an alternative, but it is not the best unless you are on a Slayer task, in which case you should use a Berserker Ring over the Treasonous. And then as far as the inventory goes for melee and range alike, I mean, it's pretty simple. You're just going to need a super combat, an extended anti-fire. You don't need the super anti-fire unless you're using like a twisted bow or something without a shield, and an antidote as well, because you will get poisoned here. And then other than that, it is super restores, both for prayer and also getting your stats back up. KBD will kind of sap your stats every now and then, and also just some food to be able to heal. And then as far as teleports, I have a Gorok teleport and a house teleport. If you don't want to use Gorok or you don't have access to them, a Burning Amulet teleport will work as well. Now looking over at the range side of things, here I have a Dragon Hunter crossbow and a Dragon Fire Ward. That is going to be the best setup as far as range goes, other than a twisted bow, but I'm going to assume most people aren't bringing a twisted bow, so I just went with this setup as the best. An Anguish as well, and an Archer Ring, so those are kind of my four. You can replace the Archer's Ring with a Suffering if you would like. I've never been too big on using the Suffering in general, but it is actually better here. The bolts I have are Diamond Dragon bolts, which are going to be best. No switching from Ruby E's. The only time I would use Ruby E bolts is if you're extremely low range and you just can't find yourself hitting too often. Then you would kind of want that boost, but other than that, you should be going with just Diamond E's. And it's a pretty basic range setup other than the main items. The Sarah D'hide is kind of for prayer bonus, as well as just, you know, being obviously good at range boost as well. The inventory is much the same, not a whole lot going on, just switched out the super combat for a ranged potion, and that's about it. Now we'll throw some options up on screen as far as gear if you want to downgrade. There are many other downgrades you can make, but these are mostly what I'd assume people would be downgrading to. As far as melee goes, from the first picture on the left to the second in the middle, I downgraded from the Lance to the Hasta. I also downgraded my Torture to a Fury, and a Dragon Fire Shield to an Anti-Fire Shield. All reasonable downgrades you could make. The only thing that would kind of lie in between those two is a Rapier, but the Rapier is worth more than the Lance, and it's worse than the Lance, but better than the Hasta. So I don't really see too many people coming here for that reason, unless you're like an Iron Man with a Rapier and not a Lance. And then the final downgrade, I downgraded the Fury to a Glory, also downgraded the Hasta to an Abyssal Dagger that you would use on Stab. Here you're going to want to be going for Stab bonus, so if you even need to downgrade further, you can go with a Whip or a Dragon Sim on Stab, but Abyssal Dagger is about the lowest I'd recommend most people come here with, but if you have to, D-Sim or a Whip works as well. And then looking at some alternatives for your range gear, from the left picture to the middle, I downgraded from a Dragon Hunter crossbow to a Dragon crossbow. There is a stopgap in between those, that is the Armadillo crossbow, so if you have that, then go ahead and go with that. That is better than the Dragon crossbow. Also downgraded from an Anguish to a Fury, and a Dragon Fire Ward to an Anti-Dragon Shield, so still a setup that'll do you well overall, but it also comes in at like 130, 140 mil less in gear supply, so a lot more affordable. And then finally on the far right, I downgraded here to a Rune crossbow, a Glory, no Archer Ring, and Diamond E-bolts instead of Dragon Diamond E-bolts. So that's about as low as you could go, depending on what your range is there. If you're using the lowest setup, if you're probably around like 70 range, like the bare minimum, you may also want to bring Ruby E bolts. As you start to get higher in range, you will find that your diamonds are going to hit a lot more constant. You're not going to be wanting it to take that damage from the rubies if you don't have to. So that is it as far as the gear goes. Now we can get into the killing of KBD, how to get there, get into the real meat of it. Also forgot to mention that if you have any untradables that you would be scared to lose out here, you can can go ahead and throw a Trover Parchment on them. If you take a Trover Parchment and a certain amount of coins, depending on what type of item you are trying to save, if you go up the ladder in this little Edgeville general store, Purdue will be up there. You can talk to him and he will imbue your items, so if you die over level 30 with some untradables, you won't actually lose them. So that's a way you can be extra safe if you'd like. As far as how to get there, like I mentioned earlier, you can use a Gorok teleport or the Burning Amulet teleport. The Burning Amulet one will take you right here. The Gorok one will take you over here. Both about the same distance. I prefer the Gorok one because there is just less PKing going on around it. A lot of people kind of camp the Burning Amulet tele because a lot of people go through that way. So I personally prefer this way. And yeah, KBD is not too difficult to kill at all. Like I mentioned earlier, you can box some monsters. Boxing is basically when you get attacked by PKers. Instead, you would, at some point get attacked by a monster, and once that happens, you can just drop your food, take off your weapon, and start hitting them with your fist. Throw and protect for melee and just kind of sit there, and you can change around different monsters. You can go up and down the ladder. There are spiders down there too. Just staying in combat with the other monsters will help you not get PK'd and will save you time also if you're tele-blocked or something like that. So. And then the last thing you can do in regards to your inventory, if you would like to, you can bring a looting bag as well to just take more loot back to the bank. Every time you're going to have to go in and out of the cave, so you're going to have to come out here, put the loot in the bag, and then go back in. That is a little risky just because people could be out here and try to PK you, but it is a way to make more money. Personally, I just usually would get too many kills, and the respawn timer is only 10 seconds now, so I just prefer to go in for another kill and leave my bones and dehides on the ground. But if you're someone that can't afford to do that, then you can hop on out here and throw it in the looting bag if you'd like. So this is a world that is currently occupied, so I'll try to find a new one. I'd recommend you do that. You can always crash people if you like, but it's definitely not the kindest way to go about it. And here we are. For KBD, you're going to want to go ahead and just drink up your extended anti-fire right off the bat, pray melee, and stand within melee distance. The reason that this is useful is because it allows KBD the opportunity to melee you if you would like to, and since you're praying melee, you'll get dealt to 0. So it's just basically giving you the option of taking a free hit of damage and not getting damaged at all. Kind of a nice little boost instead of just standing back, because if you stand back and pray mage, nothing really happens. If you're adequately protected by your Dragonfire Ward, Dragonfire Shield, whatever you may have, and your extended anti, you'll be fine. I'll throw a little helpful picture up on screen that I found on the wiki that basically goes through every combination of what you could be using and what the max hits of certain attacks are. Basically what it tells you is if you're using anti-fire and an anti-dragon shield, then you're perfectly fine. Praying mage isn't going to help you any more than praying melee, so that's why we would go ahead and pray melee. And the kills are nothing too terrible here. They come pretty quick if you have decently high stats. The lower you are, obviously the longer the kills will go, but if you feel like it's extremely slow, you could always try to get a friend to come by with you, someone from a clan chat, maybe Smallexplamp clan chat if you want to hit it up. This is kind of like the best introduction bossing that you could do with a small group of low-level players and have a good time, I feel like. It was one of the first things I ever did as far as bossing goes in RuneScape, and I enjoyed it back then, and I'm sure you'd enjoy it now as well. As far as the attacks, there's the melee attack, there is the fire attack that you just saw there. There's also a poison attack, which is green, and that if you are antidoted up, you will be fine. That was an ice attack, which is just like a mage-based attack, I guess. I mean, you can't protect from it, but yeah, that can do up to like a 10 damage if you're adequately protected. And then there's also like a shocking blue attack, so you can get frozen every now and then at KBD. It can be a little bit annoying, but other than that, there's not a whole lot you really have to worry about. The most you should ever be really getting dealt is like a 10 damage, so you're never going to have to stay too high of HP, and you can honestly camp pretty low. It's technically not efficient to like be eating mid-kill, so if you don't have to, it's best to just eat all the food you have to after the kill. That way you're not wasting any time during it. And like I said, if you want to save your bones, your dehide, whatever, you can go out here, pull the lever in between kills, and go throw all your loot into your looting bag if you'd like. And also another way to negate a little bit of damage is you can use a walk under method, which is just like in between hits while you're waiting for your attack to come back. You can just stand under him. It'll slow down his attacks a little bit. If you really feel like you're taking that much damage, this is something you could do. It's not something I typically do though, because it's just a bit intense for the aid that it gives you. I don't feel like it's too worth it, but that is up to you. Basically, the only time you'd ever actually want to pray mage here and just stand back is if you're using a twisted bow. Other than that, not really something you should ever be doing, and standing close will be the best and most effective route for you. Ultimately, I really do enjoy KBD. It's not anything that's going to be like meta money making or something like that, but it is a very enjoyable entry-level boss that has decent drops. Even if you're a high level killing it, you kill it so quick that you still make good money, and if you're on a Slayer task, it's definitely a good alternative to, you know, actual black dragons. So definitely prefer it, and have enjoyed my time here on both my accounts doing a few thousand KC. So teleporting out, I just use a house teleport, but you know, I guess it's pretty given. However you want to go ahead and get back to the bank, that is up to you. And as far as this video goes, that is going to be it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the KBD guide. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like. Any future guides you want to see from me, let me know in a comment down below. And on top of that, if you want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to hit that subscribe. And yeah, I'll also be streaming later tonight on Twitch. If you want to check that out, that'll be in the links down below. Also have a Twitter down there if you want to give me a follow. Good times. So with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and deuces.